The distress signal arrived on a Tuesday morning at 0347 hours, cutting through the static of deep space communications like a knife through silence. Commander Sarah Chen was halfway through her third cup of coffee when the translation algorithms finally made sense of the desperate transmission. Please. Anyone. We are dying. Our world burns. The Cathara have found us. The message repeated 17 times before cutting to static. Sarah stared at her screen in the Luna Command Center, watching the waveform patterns dance across her monitor. In 30 years of monitoring deep space communications, she had never received a genuine alien distress call. Lieutenant Rodriguez, get me Admiral Harrison immediately, Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. And patch this signal through to the Xenolinguistics Department at Cambridge Station. Within minutes, her screen filled with the weathered face of Admiral Marcus Harrison, commander of the Terran Defense Fleet. His gray eyes studied the transmission data Sarah had forwarded. How certain are we that this is genuine? Harrison asked, his voice carrying the weight of command decisions that could reshape humanity's future. The signal originates from the Kepler 442 system, roughly 1,200 light-years from Earth. Our deep space monitoring stations picked it up simultaneously. The mathematical constants embedded in the transmission match no known human encryption protocols. Sir, this appears to be legitimate first contact. Harrison leaned back in his chair. For decades, humanity had wondered if they were alone in the universe. The answer had just arrived in the form of a cry for help. The name they mentioned, Cathara. Does it mean anything to our xenobiologists? Not yet, sir. But the linguistic patterns suggest a species under extreme duress. The transmission contains what appears to be stellar coordinates and population data. They're requesting immediate assistance against what they describe as an extinction-level threat. The Admiral's expression hardened. Throughout human history, first meetings between civilizations rarely ended well for the less technologically advanced species. If humanity was receiving this call, it meant these aliens considered them advanced enough to help. Contact the Emergency Council. We're calling a full session within 6 hours. And Sarah? Yes, sir? Get me everything we can on that system. If we're going to help, I need to know what we're walking into. Across Earth and its colonies, the machinery of human civilization suddenly shifted into high gear. At the orbital defense platform above Mars, Captain James Walker received his deployment orders with barely concealed excitement. After 2 decades of fighting pirates and maintaining peace among the outer colonies, the possibility of genuine alien contact sent electricity through his veins. The ship he commanded, the UES Retribution, represented the pinnacle of human military engineering. 800 meters of hardened titanium and advanced weaponry, powered by a fusion core that could burn for decades. Its crew of 1,200 represented the best humanity had to offer. Sir, we're receiving Priority 1 deployment orders, his communications officer announced. We're to rendezvous with the main fleet at Jupiter Station within 72 hours. Walker nodded, studying the preliminary intelligence reports flooding his command console. The alien species called themselves the Yalari, and their desperate transmission painted a picture of a peaceful civilization under assault by something called the Cathara Empire. What caught Walker's attention were the biological readings the Yalari had included in their distress call. Their homeworld registered as a Class M planet, with standard gravity, comfortable temperatures, and an oxygen-rich atmosphere. By galactic standards, it was paradise. Earth, by comparison, was classified in their own files as a Class X death world. Crushing gravity, violent weather patterns, aggressive native species, and an atmosphere that could rust metal within decades. Humans had evolved in conditions that would kill most carbon-based life forms within hours. Communications. Patch me through to Admiral Harrison's flagship. Connection established, sir. Harrison's image appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Walker could see the bustling activity of a command center preparing for war. Captain Walker, I trust you've reviewed the initial intelligence package. Yes, sir. The Yalari homeworld reads like a resort compared to Earth. If they're calling us for military assistance, whatever they're facing must be truly devastating. My thoughts exactly. The preliminary analysis suggests the Kithara Empire has been systematically exterminating species across that sector of the galaxy. The Yalari may be their latest target. Walker felt something cold settle in his stomach. Genocide was something humanity understood all too well from their own history. The idea of an empire built on extermination triggered every protective instinct humans had developed over millennia of evolution. What are our rules of engagement, sir? We're still determining that. The Emergency Council is debating the implications of first contact under these circumstances. But, Captain, I want you to understand something clearly. Sir, if we choose to respond to this distress call, we won't be going as diplomats or explorers. We'll be going as the apex predator from a death world that has never lost a war it decided to win. The Yalari are asking for help. If their transmission is accurate, they're facing extinction within months. Walker studied the tactical data streaming across his screens. The Kithara Empire controlled 17 star systems and had completely wiped out 3 documented species in the past century. Their military doctrine appeared to focus on overwhelming force and absolute destruction. Sir, with respect, this might be the best possible introduction to galactic politics. If the Kithara represent a genuine threat to peaceful species, eliminating them sends a clear message about humanity's position in the galaxy. Harrison smiled grimly. Exactly what I was thinking, Captain. Begin preparation for extended deployment. If the Council approves this operation, we'll be jumping to Kepler 442 within the week. As communication ended, Walker turned to address his bridge crew. These men and women had trained their entire careers for the possibility of defending Earth and its colonies. None of them had imagined their first interstellar war would be fought to protect aliens they had never met. All hands. This is the captain. We are preparing for possible extended deployment to an alien star system. Our mission, if approved, will be to respond to a distress call from a species facing extinction. I want all departments to begin war preparations immediately. Engineering, I want our fusion cores running at peak efficiency. Weapons, begin full inventory of our arsenal. Marines, prepare for possible planetary assault operations. Throughout the ship, 1,200 humans began preparing for war with an efficiency that would have terrified any species that understood what Deathworlders were capable of when properly motivated. In the deepest classified sections of Luna Command, xenobiologists worked frantically to understand everything they could about both the Yalari and their attackers. Dr. Elizabeth Kumar had spent her career studying theoretical alien biology. The reality exceeded every simulation she had ever run. The Yalari appear to be herbivorous humanoids, with advanced technology but limited military capability, she reported to the Emergency Council via secure connection. Their society seems to prioritize scientific advancement and artistic expression. They have no standing, military force, and limited defensive capabilities. And the Kithara? Asked Council President Martinez. Based on their attack patterns and the fragments of communication we've intercepted, they appear to be a militant, expansion-focused empire. Their technology is roughly equivalent to our own, but their society is built entirely around conquest and resource extraction. Military assessment? Martinez asked. General Patricia Stone answered immediately. Against either species individually, humanity maintains significant advantages. Our military doctrine, developed through centuries of warfare on a death world, emphasizes adaptability, overwhelming force, and complete victory. The Kithara approach warfare like a business. We approach it like survival. The debate that followed would determine humanity's first steps into galactic politics. Some council members argued for caution, suggesting that intervention in an alien war could expose Earth to retaliation. Others pointed out that if the Kithara were systematically exterminating species, they would eventually reach human space anyway. The decision came down to a simple question. What kind of civilization did humanity want to be when it took its place among the stars? President Martinez cast the deciding vote. The motion to approve Operation Guardian Angel passes. Admiral Harrison, you have authorization to deploy the Third Fleet to the Kepler 442 system. Your primary objective is to eliminate the threat to the Yalari civilization. Secondary objectives include establishing diplomatic relations and gathering intelligence on the broader galactic situation. Within hours of the vote, the largest military fleet in human history began moving toward Jupiter Station. 57 warships, ranging from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack cruisers, prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. Captain Maria Santos commanded the UES Vengeance, a heavy cruiser designed for extended deep space operations. As she reviewed the mission parameters, she couldn't help but think about the historical precedent they were setting. Helm. Set course for Jupiter Station. Maximum burn, she ordered. Communications. Send a message to all department heads. We'll be briefing the crew once we're underway. Her tactical officer looked up from his console. Captain, preliminary analysis suggests the Kithara have approximately 40 warships in the target system. They're conducting orbital bombardment of the Yalari homeworld. Santos felt her jaw tighten. Orbital bombardment was a war crime by any human standard. The deliberate targeting of civilian populations. If the aliens were conducting genocide from orbit, the human response would be swift and absolute. Begin running tactical simulations against Kithara ship configurations. I want every possible engagement scenario analyzed before we arrive. As the Vengeance accelerated toward Jupiter Station, similar scenes played out across the fleet. Humanity was going to war not for territory, resources, or political advantage, but because a species they had never met was facing extinction. The concept was uniquely human, and it would introduce the galaxy to a new kind of apex predator. One that fought hardest when protecting others. The transmission from the Yalari had been a desperate cry for help. They would soon discover that they had contacted the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and humanity never ignored a call for help. Number. The human fleet arrives. The journey to Kepler 442 took 18 days through hyperspace. 18 days during which the human fleet prepared for a war unlike any in their species' history. Admiral Harrison used every moment to drill his crews, refine tactical plans, and study every piece of intelligence about their enemy. The Kithara Empire had been expanding across this sector of space for over 2 centuries, consuming civilizations with methodical efficiency. Their standard operating procedure was simple. Arrive in overwhelming force, destroy all defensive capabilities, then systematically exterminate the native population, while stripping the planet of useful resources. They had never encountered resistance from outside their target system. Hyperspace exit in 30 seconds, announced Lieutenant Commander Park from the navigation station aboard the flagship UES Adamant. Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of all 57 ships in his fleet. All ships report ready for combat operations, his communications officer reported. Marines are standing by for planetary assault. Fighter squadrons are prepped for launch. Harrison nodded, studying the tactical overview one final time. Human military doctrine emphasized speed, overwhelming force, and adaptability. They would need all 3 advantages against an enemy that outnumbered them and held orbital superiority around the target planet. Fleet-wide communication. All ships. Across the human fleet, thousands of men and women turned their attention to their admiral's words. Today, we make first contact with 2 alien civilizations. One has called for our help. The other is committing genocide. Our response will define humanity's place in the galaxy for generations to come. We are not just fighting for the Yalari. We are fighting for every peaceful species that might someday face the same threat. Drop to sublight in 3, 2, 1. Mark. Reality twisted as 57 human warships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. The tactical displays immediately filled with contacts as the ship's sensors swept across local space. The situation was worse than intelligence had suggested. Admiral, we have 43 Kithara vessels in various orbital positions around the 4th planet, reported the tactical officer. 17 are conducting what appears to be continuous orbital bombardment. The remaining ships are in defensive formations. Harrison studied the enemy positions with the eye of someone who had spent 40 years learning to win battles. The Kithara had arranged their forces to maximize the efficiency of their planetary destruction, while protecting their bombardment ships from potential threats. They had not arranged their forces to defend against an attack from beyond the system. Signal the fleet. Execute Formation Omega. All ships. Launch fighters immediately. Target priority goes to bombardment vessels, then command ships, then escorts. The human fleet spread out in a formation designed to maximize firepower while minimizing the enemy's ability to concentrate their response. Hundreds of fighters streamed from launch bays, their pilots eager for humanity's first space battle against alien forces. Captain Walker watched from the bridge of the Retribution as his ship's fighter squadron screamed toward the enemy fleet. The Kithara were reacting with surprising speed, pulling their bombardment ships back toward the protection of their battle line. Enemy vessels are changing formation, his tactical officer announced. They're moving to intercept our fighters. Walker smiled coldly. That's exactly what we want them to do. Weapons. Prepare to fire our main batteries the moment we're in range. Target their flagship. The Kithara command ship was a massive vessel, nearly a kilometer long and bristling with weapons. It was also moving directly toward the human fleet, apparently intending to engage in the kind of stand-up battle that the Kithara had used to crush 17 different civilizations. They had never fought humans before. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship, the communications officer reported. Audio only, translated by our AI systems. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers was harsh and mechanical, filtered through translation algorithms that struggled with the alien language. Unknown vessels, you have entered Kithara territorial space without authorization. Identify yourselves and state your purpose, or be destroyed. Harrison took the communication personally. This is Admiral Marcus Harrison, of the Terran Defense Fleet. The Yalari have requested our assistance against your unprovoked attacks. We are here to protect them. A pause, then harsh alien laughter. Humans. We have heard whispers of your species. You are from the death world called Earth, yes? You will find space warfare different from whatever primitive conflicts you waged on your toxic planet. We have destroyed civilizations far older and more advanced than yours. Perhaps, Harrison replied calmly. But you've never destroyed one that evolved on a Class X death world. You're about to discover why that matters. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. All ships, commence attack. Show them what Deathworlders can do when we're properly motivated. The space between the two fleets erupted into chaos as hundreds of weapons systems fired simultaneously. The humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare, and their technology reflected that obsession with efficient destruction. Kithara shields flared and collapsed under sustained particle beam fire. Human fighters, designed for the brutal atmospheric combat of Earth, proved impossibly maneuverable in the vacuum of space. The alien pilots, accustomed to combat between massive capital ships, struggled to track targets that moved like predatory fish through three-dimensional space. Direct hit on the enemy flagship, Walker's tactical officer reported. Their shields are down 40%. Continue firing. All batteries, concentrate on that target. The Retribution's main guns spoke again, sending streams of coherent energy across the void. The Kithara flagship staggered under the assault, its armor plating vaporizing under weapons designed to crack the hardest materials known to human science. But the aliens were not helpless. Their return fire hammered against human shields with devastating effect. The destroyer UES Phoenix took a direct hit to her engine section and began venting atmosphere. Phoenix is declaring emergency, communications reported. They've lost main power and are drifting. Harrison watched the tactical display as his ships pressed their attack. The Kithara were fighting with the methodical precision of a species that had conquered through superior technology and overwhelming numbers. They were not prepared for opponents who fought with the desperate creativity of predators evolved on a death world. "Sir, the Kithara are retreating toward the planet," the tactical officer announced. "They're trying to use the orbital defense platforms as cover." "Negative. They're not retreating. They're positioning themselves to threaten the Yalari population centers." Harrison's voice turned cold. "All ships. Maximum burn. We end this before they can murder more civilians." The human fleet accelerated toward the planet, their engines pushing them beyond safe operational limits. In the cramped quarters of troop ships and battle cruisers, human soldiers and spacers worked with the grim efficiency of their species when lives were at stake. On the surface of the Yalari homeworld, the native population watched in amazement as new stars appeared in their sky. For months, they had endured bombardment from orbit, hiding in underground shelters while their cities burned above them. Ambassador Keyleth, one of the few Yalari officials still alive, stood in the emergency command center beneath their capital city. The transmission they had sent into space had been a desperate act, broadcast to anyone who might be listening. "The new ships are engaging the Kithara fleet," her aide reported, studying the sensor readings with growing excitement. "Whoever responded to our distress call, they're winning." Keyleth studied the tactical display, trying to understand what she was seeing. The Kithara fleet, which had seemed invincible just hours ago, was being systematically destroyed by vessels of unknown design and capability. "Have we been able to establish communication with our rescuers?" "Brief contact only. They identify themselves as humans from a planet called Earth. Their admiral stated they received our distress call and came to assist us." The implications staggered Keyleth. Another species, one they had never met, had traveled across interstellar space to defend them against extinction. Such a concept was beyond anything in Yalari cultural experience. Above them, the battle continued to rage. The Kithara had established positions around the planet's orbital defense platforms, trying to use the Yalari's own defensive systems as cover. It was a tactically sound move that protected them from human attack while keeping them in position to continue the bombardment. It was also exactly the kind of predictable strategy that human military doctrine was designed to counter. "Launch assault pods," Harrison commanded. "Marines, you're going to take those platforms from the inside." Across the fleet, specially modified assault pods launched from human ships. Each pod contained a squad of human Marines, equipped for zero-gravity combat in hostile environments. These were soldiers who had trained for boarding actions on space stations, prepared for fighting in the vacuum of space or the deadly atmosphere of alien worlds. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez guided her pod toward the nearest orbital platform, watching as Kithara point defense systems tried to intercept the incoming assault force. The aliens were good, but human Marines had trained for this kind of operation their entire careers. 30 seconds to contact," she announced to her squad. "Remember, these platforms are keeping the Kithara fleet in position to bombard civilians. We take them fast and hard." The pod slammed into the platform's docking bay with enough force to buckle metal plating. Rodriguez and her Marines poured out into an alien environment, their weapons ready for close-quarters combat. The Kithara defenders were waiting for them. What followed was exactly the kind of brutal, face-to-face combat that humans had perfected over millennia of evolution on a death world. The aliens were taller and stronger than humans, but they had never evolved the kind of vicious adaptability that came from surviving on a planet that actively tried to kill everything on it. Within minutes, the orbital platform was in human hands. Similar scenes played out across 6 other installations, as human Marines systematically captured the defensive network that the Kithara had been using for cover. "All platforms secured," Rodriguez reported, beginning rotation to target enemy vessels. The Yalari Orbital Defense Network, now under human control, opened fire on the Kithara fleet from point-blank range. Alien ships that had been using the platforms for cover found themselves caught in a crossfire between human warships and their own captured defensive systems. The enemy formation collapsed within minutes. Admiral Harrison watched as the last Kithara vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light, its fusion core overloading under sustained fire. Around the planet, debris fields marked the positions where an entire invasion fleet had been systematically destroyed. Casualty report, he ordered. 14 ships damaged, none destroyed. Casualties are minimal across the fleet. The Marines report light losses during the platform assault operations. Harrison nodded, studying the tactical display that now showed only human and Yalari vessels. In less than 6 hours, the Third Fleet had eliminated a threat that had terrorized this sector of space for 2 centuries. Open a channel to the Yalari Command Center. Ambassador Keyleth's image appeared on the main screen, her alien features showing obvious relief and gratitude. I am Admiral Harrison of the Human Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress call and came to assist. The immediate threat to your world has been eliminated. Admiral Harrison, I am Ambassador Keyleth of the Yalari Republic. Your intervention has saved our entire civilization from extinction. How can we ever repay such a debt? Harrison smiled, thinking about humanity's first steps into galactic politics. No debt exists, Ambassador. We came because it was the right thing to do. Now, we need to talk about the broader situation with the Kythera Empire. Something tells me this fleet was just the beginning. Number the Deathworlders message. 3 days after the battle, Admiral Harrison stood in the newly established human embassy within the Yalari capital city. The building had survived the orbital bombardment, its elegant, crystalline architecture a testament to the peaceful nature of its builders. Through the large windows, he could see Yalari civilians emerging from underground shelters, beginning the long process of rebuilding their world. The intelligence data we've recovered from the Kythera command ship paints a disturbing picture, Dr. Kumar reported, her tablet displaying captured alien databases. The Empire controls over 40 star systems and has completely sterilized 12 inhabited worlds. They maintain detailed records of their conquest campaigns dating back 3 centuries. Ambassador Keyleth, accompanied by her surviving government officials, studied the holographic display showing Kythera territorial expansion. Her people were herbivorous humanoids, tall and graceful, with skin that shifted color based on emotional state. Right now, the prevalent hue was deep purple, which Harrison had learned indicated profound concern. They were planning to strip mine our entire system after eliminating our population, Keyleth said, her voice carrying a tremor of horror. 17 billion Yalari, reduced to numbers in their resource extraction calculations. Harrison nodded grimly. The captured data revealed the Kythera's systematic approach to genocide. They would arrive in overwhelming force, destroy all resistance, then methodically exterminate every native life form before harvesting the planet's resources. It was industrial-scale murder conducted with corporate efficiency. What troubles me most, Dr. Kumar continued, is their expansion pattern. They're moving in the general direction of human space. Based on their current trajectory, they would reach the outer colonies within 50 years. Captain Walker, recently promoted for his actions during the battle, studied the star charts with a tactical eye. Sir, we're looking at a threat that goes far beyond the Yalari. If the Kythera continue their expansion unchecked, they'll eventually encounter Earth. Harrison had reached the same conclusion. Humanity's first contact with alien life had revealed a galactic empire built on extermination, one that posed an existential threat to every peaceful species in the galaxy, including humans. Ambassador Keyleth, we need to understand the broader political situation. Are there other species fighting the Kythera? Any kind of galactic government or alliance? The Yalari ambassador's skin shifted to a pale blue, indicating uncertainty. There is the Galactic Council, based in the Centauri sector. Representatives from 47 different species meet to discuss trade agreements and territorial disputes. But they have no military force and no authority to intervene in conflicts. Have they responded to Kythera expansion with strongly worded resolutions and economic sanctions? The Kythera ignore them completely. Walker exchanged a look with Harrison. The situation was depressingly familiar to students of human history. A deliberative body that could talk but not act, facing a militaristic empire that respected only force. Sir, recommendation? Walker asked quietly. Harrison was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical displays that showed the true scope of the Kithara threat. As a military officer, he understood that some problems could only be solved through the application of overwhelming force. As a human, he understood that sometimes the strong had to protect the weak, regardless of the cost. Dr. Kumar, begin compilation of all intelligence data on Kithara military capabilities, territorial holdings, and operational patterns. Captain Walker, prepare detailed reports on human military doctrine and capabilities for transmission to Earth. Ambassador Keyleth, I need you to arrange communication with this Galactic Council. You're planning to address the Council directly? Keyleth asked, her skin shifting to bright yellow with surprise. More than that. I'm planning to present them with a solution to their Kithara problem. 6 days later, the main chamber of the Galactic Council, filled with representatives from dozens of species. The circular amphitheater had been designed to accommodate wildly different anatomies and environmental requirements. Atmospheric processors maintained separate breathing environments for each delegation, while universal translators allowed communication between species that had evolved on worlds millions of light-years apart. Admiral Harrison entered the chamber, wearing the formal dress uniform of the Terran Defense Fleet. The assembled delegates studied him with curiosity and wariness. Most had never seen a human before. Though rumors of their intervention at Yalari had spread quickly through diplomatic channels. Council Speaker Vorth, a methane-breathing species from the galactic core, activated the translation systems and called for attention. Honored delegates, we are joined today by Admiral Harrison of the Human Terran Defense Fleet. The humans recently intervened in the Kithara assault on Yalari space, successfully eliminating an entire invasion fleet. Murmurs spread through the chamber as delegates discussed this development. Several species had lost colonies to Kithara expansion, but none had ever successfully resisted their forces. Admiral Harrison, the Council recognizes your species' military intervention. However, we must express concern about the implications of unilateral action in galactic affairs. The Council prefers diplomatic solutions to interspecies conflicts. Harrison stood at the central podium, surrounded by the representatives of galactic civilization. He had spent days preparing for this moment, knowing that his words would determine humanity's role in a galaxy much larger and more complex than Earth had ever imagined. Honored Speaker, distinguished delegates, I appreciate your preference for diplomatic solutions. Diplomacy is indeed preferable to warfare. However, the Kithara Empire has made clear that they have no interest in diplomacy, negotiation, or coexistence. They are committed to the systematic extermination of every species that does not serve their expansion. A delegate from the Corvan Federation spoke up, her crystalline form refracting light as she moved. Admiral, while the Kithara actions are regrettable, military intervention risks escalating conflicts across the entire sector. Surely continued diplomatic pressure and economic sanctions will eventually force them to negotiate. Harrison accessed the holographic display system, showing detailed maps of Kithara expansion over the past century. Respected delegate, the Kithara have expanded through 42 star systems in the past 100 years. They have completely exterminated 12 different species. Economic sanctions require trade relationships they don't want. Diplomatic pressure requires them to value your opinions. He changed the display to show population statistics that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. In the time this council has been passing resolutions and implementing sanctions, the Kithara Empire has murdered approximately 57 billion sentient beings. They are currently conducting extermination operations against 3 more species. By your own intelligence reports, they will reach the territories of at least 6 council member species within the next 20 years. The chamber fell silent as the scope of the threat became clear. Many of these species had advanced technology and sophisticated cultures, but few had ever developed serious military capabilities. They had assumed that civilization had progressed beyond the need for large-scale warfare. They had been wrong. Speaker Vorth addressed Harrison directly. Admiral, what exactly are you proposing? Harrison straightened, knowing that his next words would echo through history. The Terran Defense Fleet is prepared to eliminate the Kithara Empire as a threat to galactic peace. We have the military capability and the strategic doctrine necessary to conduct systematic operations against their territorial holdings. However, we need the Council's support to accomplish this mission effectively. The response was immediate and chaotic. Dozens of delegates began speaking simultaneously, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that overwhelmed the translation systems. Harrison waited patiently for order to be restored. "Admiral," said the Corvan delegate once quiet returned, "you're proposing to wage war against an entire interstellar empire. The implications of such action would be enormous. The implications of inaction will be the extinction of every peaceful species in this sector of the galaxy," Harrison replied calmly. "The Kithara have demonstrated that they cannot be reasoned with, cannot be deterred by sanctions, and will not stop expanding until they control everything or are destroyed. Those are the only two options." A new voice spoke from the chamber's upper tiers. "And what guarantee do we have that humans won't simply replace the Kithara as a threat? Your species evolved on a Class X death world. Your military capabilities clearly exceed anything in this region of space. Why should we trust you with the power to destroy interstellar civilizations?" It was the question Harrison had been waiting for. The fundamental challenge that would determine whether humanity became a protector or a conqueror in galactic politics. "Because," he said simply, "we came when the Yalari called for help, not when they had something we wanted. We traveled 1,200 light-years to protect a species we had never met, with no expectation of payment or territorial gain. We did it because it was the right thing to do." He gestured to Ambassador Keyleth, who had accompanied him to address the council. "Ask the Yalari what terms we demanded for our assistance. Ask them what tribute we required, what territory we claimed, what resources we took as payment for saving their civilization." Keyleth stood and addressed the assembly. "Honored delegates, the humans asked for nothing except the right to help. They offered us technology, medical assistance, and protection against future threats. They established an embassy on our world not to control us, but to learn about galactic civilization and share their knowledge with us." Harrison nodded his thanks to the ambassador and continued his address to the council. "The Kithara Empire will continue expanding until they control everything, or are stopped by force. Your choice is simple. Continue passing resolutions while they murder billions more sentients, or support a military solution that will end the threat permanently." "And what would human support cost us?" asked Speaker Vorth. "Nothing. We're offering to eliminate a threat to galactic peace. In return, we ask only for the opportunity to establish diplomatic relations with peaceful species and contribute to a stable galactic community." The debate that followed lasted 14 hours. Some delegates argued for continued diplomatic efforts. Others pointed out that such efforts had failed completely for over a century. Several species whose territories bordered Kithara space spoke passionately about the need for decisive action. When the vote was finally called, the resolution passed by a significant margin. The Galactic Council would provide intelligence support, logistical assistance, and diplomatic cover for human military operations against the Kithara Empire. Admiral Harrison returned to the Terran fleet with authorization for the largest military campaign in human history. Within weeks, additional fleets would arrive from Earth, bringing the full might of human military power to bear against an empire built on genocide. The campaign that followed would be studied by military historians for centuries. Human forces, employing the aggressive tactics and adaptive strategies learned through millennia of warfare on a death world, systematically dismantled Kithara military infrastructure across 42 star systems. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries discovered that they had never faced an opponent like humanity. Species that evolved in paradise fought for territory and resources. Species that evolved on death worlds fought for survival, and they never stopped fighting until the threat was completely eliminated. The final Kithara stronghold fell after 18 months of sustained campaign. Their leadership was captured and turned over to the representatives of species they had attempted to exterminate. Their military forces were completely destroyed, and their territorial holdings were distributed among the survivors of their genocide. Humanity emerged from the campaign as the de facto military protector of the galactic community, a role they embraced with the same determination they had shown in responding to the original Yalari distress call. The alien SOS had sparked humanity's full military response, but more than that, it had revealed to the galaxy that some species could be trusted with power because they used it to protect those who could not protect themselves. In the years that followed, as human colonies spread across the galaxy and human ships patrolled space lanes, once terrorized by the Kithara, the story of First Contact became legend. The tale of how Deathworlders had crossed the galaxy to answer a call for help, not for glory or conquest, but because it was the right thing to do. And when new threats emerged, as they always did, the call went out again. Not to the deliberative councils or diplomatic assemblies, but to the humans who had proven that sometimes the strong must protect the weak. Regardless of species, politics, or distance, the Deathworlders always answered,